When I was 19 years old, I received shocking news. My boyfriend had been murdered by 2 robbers. I was overwhelmed with grief at this news. He was only 20 years old and his life was just beginning. But now, he had left me and his family forever. This fact is hard for me to accept. It was the first time I had ever been so close to death, and the experience made me realize the fragility and brevity of life. I felt helpless and lost because I could not change the fact that it had already happened. I began to question the meaning of life and lost interest in everything. Why go to school? Why work? Why get married? These questions plagued me. In the shadow of death, life seemed to become meaningless. I tried to seek help from my teachers and the pastor of my church, but no one could give me satisfactory answers. My mood became more and more depressed, and eventually I fell into a severe depression. In this situation, I turned to my parents for help. They took me to see a psychiatrist. The doctor prescribed some medication for me, which I took for 2 weeks as instructed. My parents also often accompanied me on trips, which gradually helped me to get rid of my psychological distress. For years later, a tragedy happened to me again. My best friend from high school died in a traffic accident. We had many good times together, and we shared many important moments. He was a very important person to me. We had made many wonderful promises, but now he is gone from me forever. After this, I felt intense loneliness and pain. My parents' relationship had also become increasingly strained and they were considering divorce, which made me even more depressed and helpless. I felt abandoned and that no one could understand my pain and grief. I tried to find support and comfort, but it seemed like no one could really understand my inner world. I fell into a state of despair and felt like my whole world was falling apart. I decided to write a letter to my parents to express my disappointment and dissatisfaction with them. I knew it wasn't an easy decision, but I felt I had to do it. I found paper and a pen and sat down quietly in my room. I worked hard to translate my emotions into words so that my inner feelings could be expressed. I told them about my disappointment in them and how I thought they were not fulfilling their responsibilities as parents. I thought they had never really paid attention to me or understood the pain I was feeling inside. I told them that I wanted to cut off contact with them. I did my best to let them know what I really thought. When I finished writing this letter, I felt a little lighter. I put the letter on my desk. That night, I was in a very low mood. My friend wanted to help me get rid of this mood, so he invited me to a bar to relax. In the bar, we started drinking and enjoying this feeling of freedom. I felt immersed in an endless emptiness and could not get rid of this emotion. My friends noticed the change in my mood and they were worried about me and wanted to help me. One of my friends brought out some medications that claimed to make me feel better. I didn't know the names of these medicines or what the ingredients were. At that time, I just wanted to get rid of this low mood. So I didn't hesitate to take them. As time went on, I started to feel dizzy and then started vomiting. My friends tried to help me, but I felt like I was completely out of control. When I arrived at my friend's house, my consciousness started to become blurred. I felt that my soul and body had separated. Everything around me became abnormally quiet, as if time and space had stopped. This feeling was very bizarre and made me feel frightened and uneasy. I didn't know where I was or how to get back to the real world. I quickly passed through a dark space, and then appeared in a brightness. The lights were so bright that I felt a little dizzy. In this space full of light, I felt that everything was blended together to form a complete whole. This feeling was so real. Here, all my questions were answered. Every question I had, I could get a clear answer to. This place is like my forever home, the earth is just my temporary residence. I see pieces of my former life flash before my eyes. I saw my childhood, and my teenage years, and all my experiences on earth. I was amazed and moved by these moments, because I understood the true meaning and value of all these experiences. I saw that the experiences that had caused me pain and distress now made sense. I felt that God knew me more deeply than I knew myself. I realized that no matter what I experienced on earth, I was under God's control. He has a perfect plan for my life. Life itself is a precious gift. We should cherish it to create wonderful memories and experiences. In this place, I found my home and I understood the true meaning of life. During this experience, I met my friend who died in a car accident. Although I couldn't see him, I could feel his presence. When I communicated with my friend, we no longer needed words. We were able to feel each other's presence and thoughts directly. My friend used to be an atheist. After coming here, he believed in the existence of God and he understood the meaning and value of life. My friend's presence gave me great comfort and confidence. I understood that even though he had left this world, his soul was still alive. This made me believe even more that death is not an end but a beginning. In this space, I felt that my soul is eternal and that our existence has meaning. At some point during this experience, I was asked to make a choice. I could let my soul stay here, which meant I would truly die. Or I could choose to return to Earth and complete the mission I had not yet completed. In that moment, I suddenly thought of my friend. I didn't want her to wake up and find out I was dead. I couldn't let her have such a horrible experience, and I didn't want her to live with self-blame for the rest of her life. I also realized that there were still things I wanted to do that I hadn't done. So I decided to return to Earth and continue to pursue my dreams and goals. I felt grateful that I still had a choice. When I decided to return to Earth, I felt myself gradually detaching from that space. There was a force that was helping me to return to the real world. This force grew stronger and stronger, making me gradually aware of my body and my surroundings. I began to feel the weight of my body. I felt my breathing gradually increase and my heart began to beat faster. I heard the sound of a vehicle's horn. When I fully returned to the real world, I felt my body was full of energy. At one point, I heard a commanding voice which told me to get a drink of water immediately. So I grabbed the large bottle of water next to me and started drinking. About halfway through, I felt like my stomach was about to explode. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up a huge amount of liquid. I realized that I hadn't urinated or drunk water in a long time. The next morning, as I walked out of the house, I felt a breath of fresh air and a gentle breeze on my cheeks. I looked into the distance and could see a beautiful sunrise. It was one of the most beautiful sights I have ever seen. Everything looked so beautiful. I remembered last night's experience, and it was so real and clear, it was as if it had just happened. I realized that my outlook on life had changed. In this experience, I understood that death is not an end, but another beginning. It is not that scary. I felt it was my responsibility to share my experience and help others gain some insight. After going through this experience, I learned to be grateful and appreciate the people and things around me. I realized that life is a precious gift and we should cherish it. This experience also made me believe in the existence of God once and for all. For years later, my grandfather was diagnosed with lung cancer. The treatment did not yield significant results. The doctors told us that my grandfather's time was running out. During that time, I was at home with him. I could feel his fear of death and his reluctance to let go of his family. He would often tell me about his fears for the future, even though I knew that his departure was inevitable. I wanted him to have an easy time. I sat by his bedside and gently grabbed his hand. I told him that I had been through a death experience. I believe there really is life after death, and it is better than we can imagine. I described the light and beauty I saw in that space, and the feeling that could not be expressed in words. Death is not scary because our souls will continue to exist and move on in another world. I looked at his face and saw his eyes filled with tears, and I knew he was listening carefully to every word I said. I saw his expression become more calm. He told me that he had listened to me and felt braver and more determined in his approach to death. He said that my experience had given him some comfort, that he no longer feared death, and that he believed that his soul would continue to exist. We continued talking until he fell asleep. I gently put down his hand and left his room. A month later, my grandfather left this world. Although I felt very sad, I knew he had gone to a better place. I believe that sometime in the future he and I will be reunited again in heaven. This experience also made me understand my mission. I began to share this experience with more people, hoping to help those who are afraid of death. I told them that death is just a doorway to a better life and not to be afraid of it.